an air show by the British Red Arrows, and a reception with Queen Elizabeth. G7 summit host British Prime Minister Boris Johnson pulled out all the stops to facilitate this meeting with leaders of the world's 7 wealthiest democracies, their first in person since 2019.
There has been a fantastic degree of harmony.
Despite the appearance of normality, the coronavirus pandemic overshadowed the summit, which ended with a pledge to end the outbreak and work to prevent similar ones in the future.
Leaders have pledged over 1 billion doses, either directly or through funding to COVAX.
Activists say it's not enough. They demand that rich countries, which are accused of hoarding vaccines, do more, including waiving intellectual property rights for vaccines at the World Trade Organization. U.S. President Joe Biden and French President Emmanuel Macron support the waiver, but the rest of the G7 opposes it.
We know that donations are not going to get us out of this crisis. What we needed to see was the G7 leaders coming together and to commit to lift the patents on these vaccines and share the recipes so that developing countries can make these vaccines for themselves.
China, which is not a G7 member, was a focus of the talks. President Biden pushed leaders to call out Beijing's forced labor practices and unwillingness to play by international trade rules. The group announced a U.S.-sponsored infrastructure financing mechanism for low- and middle-income countries called Build Back Better World to rival China's Belt and Road Initiative, the global infrastructure strategy central to Beijing's foreign policy.
We think that there's a much more equitable way to provide for the needs of countries around the world. And so it's a values-driven, high-standard, transparent financing mechanism we're going to provide.
China hit back by saying that the days when global decisions were dictated by a small group of countries are long gone. Russia, kicked out of the G8 in 2014 following Moscow's annexation of Crimea, was also called out for its destabilizing behavior, including cyber attacks and chemical weapons use against individuals opposed to Russian President Vladimir Putin.
Autocrats have enormous power. They don't have to answer to a public.
On climate change, leaders committed to meet an overdue spending pledge of $100 billion a year to help developing countries cope with global warming. Despite activist pressure, only 2 nations, Canada and Germany, gave specific cash amounts.
They are basically painting a story like they're doing what needs to be done for the climate and ecological emergency. But we know that they're not.
After an audience with the Queen Sunday evening, Biden flew to Brussels to attend summits with NATO and the European Union. From Brussels, Patsy Widakuswara, VOA News.